Good evening. Welcome to the Michigan Notary Network. We have with us a technologically challenged Mike Vereecke, whose screen is going weird. Mike is a commercial insurance agent, and I asked him to come on here and explain E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance to all of us so that we can figure out what it is we're paying for every month and why we're paying for it and what does it cover and what does not cover. I actually sent him my National Notary Association E&O insurance, which I was told covers the actual act of notarizations. And then I sent him my BIBERT policy, which I was told covers loan signings or carrying around documents for other people. But before we get started on that, let's talk, since Mike is a commercial insurance agent, and the first conversation I ever had with him was about having stickers on your car or signage saying that you are a mobile notary. So I know I had asked my insurance, which was Frankenmuth, if I could have anything on my car, and they said as long as it's removable, it's fine, as in a magnet or a license plate frame. And that was the extent of it. Anything else, I would have to have the upgraded like business insurance or something like that. So I was told that's not true of all insurances. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike, let him answer that question, and then he can just roll on into the E&O. If you have any questions today and you're here, please throw them into the chat and we will ask them as it goes on. And if you stay on mute, that would make it a lot easier. It goes really smooth when it goes that way. It's all yours, Mike. Take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for the invite, Leslie. I really appreciate you having me on. My name is Michael Vereecke. I'm the owner of Customers First Insurance Group. I am a CLCS designated insurance agent. That means I have a commercial lines coverage specialist designation. So I know how all the different endorsements, which are just additions to your policy, and how they work. So the challenge with having any type of advertising on your car is that personal auto policies exclude commercial activity. Now, there is a way that you can put it as business use, and that will cover a lot of different business lines. Now, that's going to be on a case-per-case basis, and you should talk to someone, an underwriter, or have your agent talk to an underwriter at the company you're with to make sure what you're doing is okay. But there's still a challenge there. Even if they say it's okay, the challenge is the named insured on your personal policy is you as an individual and not your business. So if that person decides to sue your business, your personal auto policy is not going to defend your business or cover your business should it lose in a judgment. And the number one asset to an insurance policy that people don't think about is the duty to defend. So when a lawsuit gets brought against you or your business, the insurance company has to pay for you to have an attorney represent you. And that usually is way higher than the judgment in most cases is the cost to defend yourself. Wow. Because, these lawyers, they charge an hourly fee, right? But the insurance company has them on a retainer. So it works a little bit differently. So I would tell you, if you're going to put any advertisement on there, one, you can check to see if they're okay with it, because what you don't want is your claim to be excluded and your car not to be covered. That's most people's concern. But then you also have this issue of what if my business gets brought in a lawsuit? Now, there's two ways to do that. You can have a general liability policy that includes what's called non-owned auto coverage. It's a very low cost rider that can be added to your general liability policy, and that will cover your business should they get brought into the lawsuit. Now, I would only recommend you go that route if you've gotten the okay from the personal auto company to designate it as business use, and they say that what you're doing is okay. Then the second way to do it is just flat out insure the vehicle on a commercial auto policy. Because now what you can do is you can lease the car to your business, which could be a write-off. Yeah, exactly. And then you've given your business insurable interest on that vehicle, because if the vehicle's not in the business name, you can't just insure it on a commercial auto policy without that lease back agreement. So there's two ways to do it, and you know, by working with a skilled insurance agent, you can accomplish it a couple different ways.
Well, we might have to chat.
Yeah. And then if you don't mind, let me share my screen. I can go into my E&O thing if you guys are ready.
Well, we have a question first. Debbie's hand.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So my question about advertising on your car, is it your business name that makes it where there's liability? For instance, I have a bumper sticker that says National Notary Association, like it's a bumper sticker. I have a QR code in my back window, but nothing on my car says On the Go Notary Pro, which is the name of my business.
But don't you have a big sign on the side that says Notary Public?
No, I have
It's a bumper sticker.
Bumper sticker. It's a bumper sticker that says Notary Public, and or National Notary. So it says Notary Public, but it has the NNA logo. And then my license plate says I sign, which I got from the state. Like, that's not a business thing, that's a personalized license plate. So what makes it, where does the liability come into play? When your business name is on your car, or is it something else?
When you're in the course of doing business, actually. So let's say you get in a car accident and you say, well, I was on my way to do a signing. I wasn't, you know, I was in a hurry. And there goes my screen again. So hopefully you can hear me okay. And so what happens is you say to the police officer on site, hey, I was on the way of to a notary signing. Well, now what happens is the police notate that in the accident report. And now, because you were in the course of a commercial activity, now the personal auto doesn't want to cover you because commercial activity is not covered, right? So it really comes down to the details of the accident and what you say you were doing at the time of the accident. Or if maybe the police officer notices that you have, you know, all your work stuff on the passenger seat, and they say, you know, it comes up that you were in the course of that, right? So it's really a very gray area. But I tell people better safe than sorry is what I say, because all that has to happen, whether it's frivolous or not, all that has to happen is that person names your business in the lawsuit. Right. And now your business has to defend itself. Even if it's a frivolous claim, doesn't matter. You would have to shell out the dollars to defend yourself at that point.
About that. All right. Well, thank you for that. That was not what you were intended to talk about today, but
no problem.
While I had you captive, I took it.
Sure.
Okay. So if you want to deep dive into, insurance, and you can share your screen, you should be able to share yep. There you go. Awesome.
All right. So here's a little, presentation I put together, the importance of professional liability insurance for notaries. You'll notice that some of this is probably redundant, and you already know this, but we'll go over it anyway. So the importance of professional liability. In today's session, we'll explore the significance of professional liabilities for notaries and the potential risks they face in the profession. I'll also provide this slideshow to Leslie, and you can distribute it if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah. Definition of a notary. I don't need to tell you that. You know what you do.
Well, actually, you might want to go through that. We are public officers. Go ahead. Yep.
You're public officers appointed by the state to serve as an impartial witness in performing various official acts. Your responsibilities include administering oaths, witnessing signatures, verifying identities, and attesting to the authenticity of documents.
Okay, hold on. We don't do the authenticity. That goes through the Secretary of State. I know that's like a ChatGPT and a Google thing, but in Michigan, we don't authenticate documents.
Okay. So, well, I'm also licensed in 4 other states. So
yeah, well, I just wanted to clarify for Michigan.
Sure. Okay. The importance of professional liability insurance. So notaries are vulnerable to errors and omissions and negligence that could result in legal claims. Professional liability insurance provides protections against such claims. So what's important to note is not every policy is going to respond the same way. And you'll see when we get into the comparison that sometimes negligence, negligence will almost always be covered, but sometimes you can even have things covered that you might have intentionally done. So we'll get into that a little bit. Professional liability is also known as errors and omissions, although there is a little difference between professional liability and errors and omissions. So errors and omissions typically only covers errors and omissions. It may not give you coverage for things like negligence or fraudulent acts, things of that nature. And you say, well, why would anybody cover fraudulent acts? Well, I know most of you are probably sole proprietor, single business owner LLCs, but you could have employees working for you, right? And if you have an employee commit a fraudulent act, there are policies that will cover when that employee makes that act, right? If you're a corporation, everybody's an employee, and it's the policy is designed to protect the company more so than the individual, right? The professional liability will cover claims arising from your professional services provided by notaries. Now, there are riders you can add to cover different things, and you'll see that a little bit later in the Viberg example. It protects notaries against legal expenses, settlements, and judgments resulting from the claims of negligence, errors, or omissions. Some of the common risks for notaries include document errors, so mistakes you make when you're notarizing the documents, such as incorrect dates, missing information, or improper identification verification. Unauthorized practice of law. Maybe you get into giving advice somewhere you shouldn't, right? So you provide some legal advice or services beyond what the normal notary service is. Fraudulent acts, as we mentioned, inadvertently notarizing fraudulent documents or participating in fraudulent activities. And then negligence, failing to exercise due diligence or providing inaccurate information, right? Legal consequences for notaries include lawsuits brought by third parties, clients, government entities for those errors and omissions. Legal expenses, defending against the lawsuits, can be costly. As I mentioned, this is usually one of the biggest expenses is defending yourself, right? And it will cover attorney fees, court costs, potential settlements and judgments, and some will even give you additional things like the missed time at work and some per diem things. Damage to your reputation. A lawsuit or claim can damage a notary's reputation, affecting their future business prospects. Although that's probably, you're not going to, it's hard to place a monetary damage on reputation, and insurance companies typically will only indemnify you or make you whole on what you lost, right? So you'd have to be able to really prove that you lost something as a result of that damage. Benefits of the professional liability include financial protection. So professional liability insurance covers legal expenses, settlements, or judgments, reducing the financial burden. Peace of mind, knowing that you're protected against claims and have access to legal resources, provides peace of mind for notaries. And then the enhanced professional image. When you carry that professional liability, it gives you credibility, right? Because now you can say I'm covered, and you offer more protection. Me and Leslie talked about how she carries $1 million policy, and the people, the loan officers, when she does the loan documents, they find that very appealing, and they hire her because of that. Selecting professional liability insurance, some of the things you need to look for are coverage, ensuring the policy covers the specific risks faced by notaries, including the errors, the omissions, the fraud, things of that nature. The limits and deductibles, evaluate the coverage limits and the deductibles that align with your needs and financial situation. And the deductible is a good way to help with the premium, right? So me, for instance, I also have to carry E&O insurance. I carry a very high deductible in the range of $10,000 because one, I've been in the business for a very long time and haven't had any issues. And two, I know I'm capable of coming up with that money if I have to. And by doing that, I keep my premiums really low. Insure reputation. Choose a reputable insurance provider with experience in professional liability insurance for notaries. We talked a little bit about State Farm doing notaries now too. they're not real well known for it, right? So you're going to really want to dig into the policy language to make sure there's not some weird exclusions compared to the other companies, right? There's when you see everybody else has a certain company, there's usually one of two reasons: either they got a great reputation in the industry, or they got really cheap rates. Really cheap rates doesn't mean great coverage, right? So be cognizant of that. And then additional coverages, explore options for additional coverage, such as cyber liability, which is a big hot topic these days, to safeguard against digital risks. And then another thing is with the Byberg, Leslie was able to add coverage for the loan signing documents, and not everybody will allow you to do that. So now let's take a look at the NNA versus the Byberg Professional. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit in hopes that you guys will be able to see it a little bit better there. How's that look, ladies?
Yeah, that looks good.
All right. So the NNA only gives you $25,000 in coverage. Okay. Now, financial damages and things and legal fees are covered inside of that. So you're going to eat up that 25,000 very quickly if you get a lawsuit brought against you, right? So you have to understand that it's not just that number is what you get in case you're sued. It's also including all the legal fees that you incur. So you got to keep that in mind when you purchase your limit. With Byberg, we can go up to $1 million. So there are different thresholds you can pick, but it will go as high as $1 million. Both cover financial damages due to notarization. Both cover financial damages if you unintentionally violate the law. And again, both include the legal fees inside the policy limit. Now, you might be able to find policies out there that will cover the legal fees outside of the limit, which means it doesn't knock down the amount you're going to be covered if you're sued, right? So if you had $1 million in liability, you could get sued for up to $1 million and still have coverage, because the legal fees would be its own bucket and there would be no limit. So that's a really key thing to look at when you're looking at these. Is libel or slander covered? So when we looked at the policies, NNA does not cover libel or slander, but Byberg did. So this is a difference in E&O versus professional liability. Again, E&O is only going to cover you for your errors and omissions. Professional liability is going to cover you for mistakes or errors or different things you do as a part of your profession. So if you libel or slander someone in the course of your profession, that policy would cover you. Is there a capability to cover you as a signing agent? With NNA, it's not even available, but with Byberg, it's an optional coverage. Is malicious prosecution covered? With NNA, it is not covered, but through Byberg, it is covered. So if someone brings a malicious lawsuit against you, that could be very expensive, and this Byberg policy would cover that.
This is what I have?
Yes, the Byberg. Yep.
Wow.
False arrest imprisonment coverage. Byberg covers that, and NA does not.
Okay, wait, what is this?
You skipped
arrest and
one.
imprisonment? Oh,
Well, it's just
He's-
invasion of privacy, breach of confidence covered. So Byberg is covered. NNA, I couldn't find an answer. I don't believe it is, but I couldn't.
what are
for
these
certain.
things though? Like, what is, like, give me an example of libel or slander that would be covered.
So libel or slander. So libel is when you put something in writing and it offends someone or damages their business, right? So if you did
Okay.
an advertisement and it offended someone, right?
Okay.
Slander is when you say something bad about someone else and they bring a lawsuit against you.
All right, so like if I was put an ad out there or shared somebody else's something. Okay, got that. All right,
Yeah.
This says covered as a signing agent on my actual policy. It's optional. It's not covered.
It's you have it,
Oh, okay.
but it's an optional rider. It doesn't come automatically.
All right, so that is covered.
You have to request that. Yeah.
All right, and what is an example of invasion of privacy, breach of confidence in the notary world? Or is it like in the?
So you have someone's PHI information and you give that out to someone else.
Oh, okay. All right. Got it.
Right.
All right. And
Or
then,
you lose it and someone else gets their hands on it.
yeah, so that's why you can't let people use your phone, your computer.
Your
things like
laptop.
that.
Yep. Yep.
Or if I lose their documents, is that what that's covered?
No, that's not, well,
That's
maybe because breach
they
of
steal?
confidence, I would say that's breach of confidence,
Okay.
right?
All right, that's cool. Malicious prosecution, what does that mean? What does it look like?
Malicious prosecution is, let's say you accuse someone of doing something and they become prosecuted and then they sue you, right? So let's say you're verifying someone and
Okay.
you accuse them of uh you know giving you false
We accuse someone
identification,
of coercing somebody to sign. That would be
That would
a
be
scenario
sure.
that could happen.
And then they
All
get
right.
arrested. Yep.
Okay, all right, and then they're, okay, all right, and then,
And
all right, so keep going. And for each one, if you could like give an example of what that might be.
I'll do my best. Yeah.
Okay.
Disciplinary hearing attendance limit. So if you have to show up to a disciplinary hearing because of something you did through the state board, I don't know how your industry works that well, but should you be brought to a disciplinary hearing, Byberg will actually give you up to $10,000 to attend those hearings
Oh,
per day,
nice.
up to 10,000. Yeah.
$10,000 a day to attend.
No, 10 total of 10,000 limit.
Oh, okay.
There is a daily breakdown, but I don't have that number right now.
All right, that's cool. Okay.
Is that per
Um,
occurrence, or like if you had to go 3 times in a year? Is it $30,000
occurrence.
or is it
Per
occurrence?
occurrence. Yep.
Okay.
Find a new job, man. You gotta keep going forward.
And that would be an aggregate too. So like you wouldn't be able to make multiple claims per year. So it's more of an aggregate limit, not a per occurrence. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, got it.
And then intentional fraudulent acts covered. Neither policy is going to cover you for those intentional fraudulent acts.
Right?
So, I mean, that's not surprising to me.
No.
Then extended reporting tail options. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So this is very important in E&O insurance and professional liability. It works a little bit differently than other policies. Most policies are what we call an occurrence policy, meaning that they will only they cover when the policy occurred. So if last year you had NNA and it was an occurrence policy, then NNA would be responsible for anything that happened last year. Claims made policies, it has to occur and be made during the same policy, more or less, right? So let's say you had an act happen last year, then you switch carriers to go to a new carrier, and then it got reported this year. You could have a problem. You need to have what's called extended reporting or a retroactive date on your policy that points back to the previous policy to make sure you have coverage. So that could be, you could have an extended reporting period back 3-4 years, right? And then tail, that goes forward. So a tail, what you do, let's say you had someone that's going to retire and you're going to buy their book of business, okay? You would want them to purchase tail coverage. And what that does is protects them moving forward after the policy ends. And it's called extended reporting. So let's say I sell my business to Leslie, and then 2 years down the road, someone says, I made a mistake. Well, I'm gone. I'm out of the business and my policy is no longer, right? Where if I purchase that 2-year tail, it now covers me 2 years into the future for claims made in the future, even though they happened in the past. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
It does. I actually thought that it covered it regardless. What does mine cover? 1, 2, 4, or unlimited or not? You
I'd
don't
have to look at what your retroactive date is. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
See, I thought it actually, if in 12 years, if I was found to have notarized something incorrectly or, caused a problem, whatever, like today and 12 years from now, it would be covered because I had coverage at that point. But that
No.
you're telling me it's only if it's unlimited.
Correct. No, not
Okay.
if it's unlimited. If you have the retroactive date, that's as far back as it will go. So
Okay,
you got to look at every professional liability policy will have a retroactive date.
okay,
And then by looking back at that date, that tells you how far back the claim could have occurred and still have coverage.
okay, all right. That's,
So
so, yeah, I think we're thinking the same thing, Deb. Go ahead.
how do we know to ask for these things in our policy? Like, I don't remember Byberg asking me, how far back do you want your extended reporting tail option to be? Like, do they pick, or are they supposed to ask us, or
No,
what?
you call someone like Mike, who's an agent and has years of experience, instead of just calling the company directly and talking to a call center employee who probably has only been there a few months. So it's very important when you buy insurance. I know the trend is to go to these online companies and buy everything direct from the carrier, but that's why it's important to work with an agent with experience, is because they're gonna be better compensated and they're gonna take more pride in their work.
Well, they're also, I think what happens, especially in the notary world, is that nobody tells us anything. Michigan doesn't have any education. There's no guidance for anything. So we're all going, oh, I need that, we get that. Oh, I need that, we get that. Oh, I need that, we get that. And so we're all just going about our days doing things because somebody told us we have to do it. And
Sure, and this is with all businesses, right? I talk to
Yeah.
people all the time, contractors, it's no different. We
Yeah.
got a guy that's going to go in, he's been working for someone else for years, and now he's going to go off and start his own electrical company, right? He doesn't know
Yeah.
any better. He doesn't know what he needs. He might call next directly and try to get, the minimum general liability policy to get his business started, right? Because he doesn't know any better. But until
Yeah.
he talks to someone like me and I start talking to him about coverage for his tools and professional liability, which they need too, they just don't understand it.
Right.
You just don't know what you don't know. I would tell you, anytime you're buying insurance, deal with a skilled professional that has experience.
Yeah, I'm learning that. Thank you. I'm glad you're
Yeah.
here tonight, Mike. We're going to be talking again.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
carry on.
glad to help. Then cyber liability. Cyber liability covers you if your data is compromised. So if someone gets into your laptop and has ransomware and they get your data, and now you got people's birthdays out there, stuff like that, there's strict laws on how you have to report that to the people that were impacted, and you have to purchase, like a LifeLock or something like that, some sort of credit monitoring service for them. It can be very costly. So with Byberg, you can actually add that as an optional coverage. There are standalone policies with some carriers too, but those tend to be very expensive. If you get them as a rider on either your general liability or as a rider on your professional liability, like Byberg will do, I recommend it's a great option to look at.
Okay, can we, I have a question on that.
Sure.
You said people's phone numbers get out. So
I
it's,
meant dates of birth.
I
Phone
mean,
numbers
okay,
are, yeah.
phone numbers, date of birth, addresses, this is all public information. Our concern really is for their social security numbers and their debt, because we have people's loan signing documents. So we have their actual application that shows how much money they make and where they work and what their debt is, who they owe what to, and how much they owe it to. It has their whole credit score, all that stuff. Does
Bank
that
account
cyber
numbers.
liability cover? Yeah, account numbers. Does that cyber liability, does it cover that?
Cyber liability only covers you in a case of electronic
Yes.
things like ransomware, spyware, things of that nature, things where someone hacks into your computer.
Okay, so to help you answer this better, the process for a loan signing, they will just say, they text us or email us and say, hey, can you take this? You say yes, you log in, you accept the job. When the paperwork is ready, the whole complete loan document
Mhm.
with all of the paperwork in there, every last bit of information that needs to be in there. Have you ever bought a house? You know how big that package is.
Yep.
All of that is sent to us,
Right.
to the notary. It's stored on our computer. We have to print it, print 2 documents or 2 copies of it, take it to the signer, have them sign it, come back. In a lot of cases, we have to scan it. So now signed documents are scanned, saved to our computer, uploaded to this whatever website we're supposed to upload it to, or emailed back to whoever we're supposed to email it to. And then once we get paid, the wise people wait till they get paid because we need to prove that we did the job. Then we delete it from our computer. So what if in that time frame between the time we have it on our computer and the time we take it off, some kind of cybersecurity hack comes into our computer, they steal that information? Is that covered?
Yeah, that's what you need the cyber
Okay.
liability for, that type of instance, right? And even the email, right? If you're emailing those documents, you
Yeah,
should be using a Zix or some sort of secure email server, right? If you're not, you're really taking a chance, and you definitely should have cyber liability at that point, right? So anywhere in that chain of chain of command, when it's in your control, if it
Mhm.
gets compromised due to a cyber leak, you're going to
Yeah.
have an issue.
Okay, all right. So Gmail now, you might not know the answer to this, but I think our computer guy answered this for us, but Gmail now has a 2-factor authentication on it. Would that
Sure.
be good enough?
No,
Just
because there's something out there. There's programs out there. What hackers do is they can get in, if they compromise your email, they can put things in where if you get an email, you never even see it hit your inbox. It right away, what it does is it takes that email, it forwards it somewhere else, puts it into your deleted box, and then deletes it out of your deleted box, and you didn't even know it happened.
All right. What
So
about, what was my other question? What about a firewall? Is that
firewall,
protection
no,
enough?
firewall is meant to protect your computer from outside hackers, right? But the firewall is only as good as your activity. If you click on the wrong thing, your firewall is useless.
So would it make sense then to have a computer dedicated to loan signing that we never surf the web with?
That'd be a better question for your IT professional.
All right, we'll get him back on here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, move on.
And then counterfeit forgery covered. Both policies cover counterfeit or forgery.
Okay, what kind of counterfeit are we doing here? That's like if somebody forges our signature?
I would say just forgery in general, like someone signs someone else's name. Someone has counterfeit, I would say, is someone with a fake ID. It appears to be good to you, but it's
Okay,
not real ID, right?
okay, all right. What about, I see counterfeit and immediately my mind goes to money.
Yeah.
So what if somebody paid us with counterfeit dollars? Would we be able to file a claim and get the dollars back?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so
This
it's
is
not.
more related to more like counterfeit documents, right? Maybe
Okay.
and I don't know if you do anything with securities, but probably like a stock certificate, something like that.
Got it. I think mostly the only thing we do with that kind of thing is like retirement papers and that kind of thing. Securities usually have to be done at a bank with a medallion.
Okay.
So, okay, move on. Okay.
All right. So in conclusion, your professional liability is a critical safeguard for your notary business, protecting them from potential legal and financial losses. By securing professional liability, notaries can focus on their core responsibilities with confidence and peace of mind, right? Insurance is about having that peace of mind, knowing that when you have your worst day, it's not so bad because you have that insurance there to protect you, right?
Mhm.
And you're not going to lose your business over it.
Right.
So normally I would open this up for questions. I think you've pretty much, if anybody else has questions, I'm happy to answer, but I think we kind of answered them as we went. I have also included all my information here You can go, I got an email address here, my website. I have a link tree that has all my socials, some convenient little links to get quotes for more of the simple things, home auto, stuff like that. And then you can even book an appointment with me by going to my Calendly link.
Okay, so Debbie wants to know if you can save us money on our insurance policies. Did I tell you how much I was paying and did you quote it or no? Because everybody is different, right?
No, yeah, everybody's different. So I need some information from you to do a quote. So we
Okay.
need the legal name of the business, how you operate so that we can make sure your named insureds are all properly on there. I need to know your sales.
So Mike, let's talk
Mhm.
about that. Because
Yep.
this was a recent thing we found out was that you actually, at least Byberg does, they quote your price based on how much you say you're going to sell.
Yeah.
And so here's what happened to one person that I know. So he didn't have um, any liability insurance at all. He was working in a title office. He never carried around any documents. He didn't need it. Then he became a mobile notary, needed some. When they said, how much money do you make? Which is how they stated the question, how much money do you make? He included the amount of money that he had made for the last few years. So he was like, I'm making $72,000 a year doing loan signings. So they quoted him at $72,000 a year, even though that's not what he was going to be making. That's what he was making during the boom. So when he understood, after he and I had a conversation, I said, how much are you making doing this job? Not all the things you're doing. He was actually on salary, but they just said, how much money are you making? So his price was like $160 a month. And then I was like, I'm paying 38, seriously.
Yeah.
And so he called them back and he's like, no, that's not what I meant. And they said, you lied to us. We will not quote you. And so he was done with them.
Yeah. So here's what's important to know. The policy is auditable. Okay.
Yeah.
Although they don't typically audit them. So like a workers' comp policy, they audit every year and you pay based on exactly what you end up doing in payroll. Okay.
Okay.
With general liability and professional liability, both, it's based on your annual receipts or revenue as a
Okay.
business, right? You got to
Right.
think this isn't your personal life. This is your business we're insuring. So when they ask you that, they're asking what your receipts or sales are, not how much you make. So again, you're talking to an employee that doesn't make a whole lot of money and maybe only work there for a couple months, and they're in a call center and they're reading off a screen,
Yeah.
and they interpreted that in their own way, or maybe he heard it how he wanted to hear it at that moment. I can't say, right?
Right.
But normally it says, what are your receipts / sales, right? So we're basing your premium based on how much you do in annual receipts. Okay. So I need that.
All
If
right.
you have employees, I need to know how many employees you have, full-time,
Yeah.
part-time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then I need to know your payroll.
okay. So most of us don't have a payroll, although there are some who do. I know my employees are all 1099. One of
Yep.
the questions in here asks, what if you're a new agent? How much should you start with? So here's my experience when I was a new agent and I called to get my Byberg coverage.
Mhm.
They said, how much money do you make a year? And I said, this is brand new to me. I have no idea. He said, how much are you hoping to make?
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't know.
So
I
this is how I say it. I say it,
okay.
okay, that's great. You're starting a new business. Do you have a business plan? Because
Okay.
if you don't, you should go back to square one and start with a business plan. Okay.
That's I
Because
asked
you've
that.
already set yourself up for failure,
I
first off and foremost.
I literally ask that of all the new notaries who say, I just got my notary. Now what? It's like,
Right.
what's your business plan? Like,
Right. Because
like,
if you go into business and you don't have a business plan, you've already set yourself up for failure, right? How
right.
much do you think, how much does your business plan say you're going to do in sales the first year? And
Yeah.
then what I would tell you is give me 80% of that, because
Yeah.
nobody does what they think they're going to do their first year.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And just know that if you underestimate it, it is auditable.
Yeah.
And And I'm not sure what that looks like, right? So if you tell me you're doing 10,000 and you
Mhm.
end up doing 20 and they're going to spot audit. They don't always audit, but they might. If they happen to audit you, now just be prepared that you might have to pay double because your sales were double what you told me.
Okay, got it. So, I just want to let you know, we turned your camera off
Yeah,
because
that's fine. It was annoying
jumping.
me.
I,
I don't know what's going on there.
we could send some people flying. All right,
Yeah.
so Celine asks, in your opinion, do we need both the NNA coverage and the BIBERC coverage?
No, I think it's redundant and unnecessary.
Okay, so I can't see
Which
the
one do we
screen.
need?
But going back to that thing, which one would we say we need?
BIBERC, I would tell you, well, it depends. If you're just doing simple notary, so
Yeah.
I work with some notaries to secure bonds, and they work at an Edward Jones office, and they're literally, that's all they do is sign the
Yeah.
documents that Edward Jones needs them to sign.
Yes.
They're probably fine having an NNA policy.
Okay.
But if you're going to step outside of that and do other things like the loan signing documents, stuff like that, then you most certainly need to consider moving to like a BIBERC type policy.
Remind me what that BIBERC policy, did it cover the actual acts of notarization?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
So here's my thing with that. When you join the NNA, and you get the policy, you pay one time and it covers for your whole length of your
The
commitment.
bond.
So it's not, we're not paying a lot of money for the NNA policy.
So here's what's important to know. Both policies will never pay out.
No, and I don't think I would, I hope no,
Yeah.
I hope they never have to.
Well, they would have to pay out an even share. Okay. So if
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
two policies in force,
Yeah.
and your judgment is 10,000, NNA will have to pay 10 and BIBERC will have to pay 10.
All right. So Kamisha asked a really good question. So on that note, if we start earning, like if we say, oh, well, I'm a new notary and I'm hoping to make $40,000 doing loan signings, but I don't know, and they quote us for the $40,000, but we hit 60, should we call you and go, hey, I'm at 60, raise my rates?
No,
Should we wait till it renews?
just know that, if you get audited, you might have to come up with some more money.
Okay.
Again, my experience is they audit these types of policies once every 3 to 5 years.
Oh, okay. All right. So just change every 3 to 5 years. Okay.
Change it at renewal. So what should be happening with your agent is every year you should touch base and they should be asking you what's next 12 months look like. Do you think
Well, I
your
agree that
sales
all
will
insurance
increase?
agents should touch base with their insureds.
They should, and most try, but most insureds don't take their call.
You're right. They do. All right. So if you have a claim file against you, does your insurance company drop you, or does your rates increase? Like, how does that look?
Yes, if you have a claim against you, you will have a increase. That's given, right? One of the factors is, have you had any claims? Will they drop you? It's going to depend. It's going to
Okay.
depend on, one, did you do something? Did you lie about something? Then yeah, they're probably going to drop you.
Yeah. Like, what was the claim?
Right. And how many did you have?
Yeah.
In the state of Michigan, if you have 3 claims in a year, you're automatically canceled.
Okay. And so
wait, let me expound on that question before you move on.
Mhm.
Let's say you do a loan closing and there's 5 people that sign, or 3. Okay, we'll just say 3. 3 people that sign. Each person files a claim. That's 3 separate claims, right? Or is it just one claim because it relates to one incident?
It's one occurrence. Yep. We look at it as an occurrence.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, and none of that professional liability BIBERC covers anything to do with the vehicle, or
No.
nothing like that. Okay.
Nothing outside of you essentially, think of it this way.
Mhm.
It covers you when you make a mistake in the course of your profession.
Okay. So, how is it covered if my notary stamp gets stolen and someone else uses it? Is that under the forgery part?
I would say, yeah, that would be forgery. It might also be I don't think it would be breach of confidence, but I would tell you something like that would be covered.
So then, I know now that you've gone through the whole Biberg policy, what other companies do you, because you have multiple lines, what other lines do you carry that would cover us in the same way?
In the same way, you mean what other carriers?
Well,
So
yeah, what
I
other
have
carriers?
USLI. I'd have to do a full-on search. So basically, the way these companies work, there's no like place I can go and say, hey, tell me all the companies that do notaries. I got to go into each and every carrier and look up notary. Is it in your appetite?
Okay,
So I go to all 25 carriers and I find out, don't you like notaries, right? Some
yeah,
might do the general liability, but they won't do the professional, right? The professional is going to be a little tougher than like almost everybody would do your general liability, but only a few are going to do your professional, right? So USLI, I believe, is somebody that would do your professional.
okay,
And there's probably a few others out there. I'd have to search though.
okay, all right, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, out to our little community here, are there any questions we haven't covered yet? And then secondly, oh, Joanne, go ahead.
Yes, I asked the question if he had a checklist in regards to the questions that we should ask the carrier. Will we get some type of copy so we'll know, like if we call our insurance company to ask them?
Well, how about this, Joanne?
How about you call me?
I was gonna say, Mike just gave us an hour of his time. Why
Okay,
don't
I
you
have an
call
insurance
him?
policy, Mike, with his car. Can
Okay.
you go over that policy
Yeah,
and
if
let
you
me
send it,
know?
yep, if you
Okay,
send it to me, I could do a proposal and give you like I did here with the
okay,
NNA and the Biberg for Leslie.
okay.
I
Thank you.
just put his information in the chat again, so if you want to save the chat or take a picture of it or write it down, whatever, so you can do that. I always like to encourage people to use the people that we bring on here because they are kind enough to give us information for free. And then, and that way, you know, maybe we can help them with growing their business since they're helping us grow ours. I would like to put out, does anybody want to volunteer? We will stop the recording though, to have Mike do a live quote. I would have him do me, but he's got mine sitting in front of him and he hasn't called and said, Leslie, I can do anything better. So does somebody not have Biberg who wants to maybe volunteer for that?
I can volunteer. I don't have Biber, and I did put a question in the chat.